Ladies and gentlemen, good evening and welcome to Spiritual Psychic TV and this being Spiritual with me, your host, Ashley Robinson. It's fantastic to be back after a short period away on personal leave. I think it's actually with the two shows missing, I've been away from your screens for about a month, and I've certainly missed you. Hope you've missed me, some of you too. And to get the show going tonight, we're going to be talking all about the religion of spiritualism, but in particular, what it means to me from a spiritualist philosophy point of view and what it means to you. This is a live interactive show, folks. There's an opportunity for you to ask Ash anything, throw your questions into the live chats on Facebook or on YouTube. And you could also do us a favor of sharing this stream. So if you're on YouTube, make sure you've logged in, folks. Give us the thumbs up, share this stream out, and you can participate in the live chat. And on Facebook, just make sure you're over at Spiritual Psychic TV. You're watching the mainstream and comment in the wall. And do let us know, folks, where you're watching this show from tonight. If there's any new visitors to Spiritual Psychic TV or new visitors to this show in particular, also let us know. I'd like to give you a special mention and give you a couple of name shouts and a warm welcome to everyone that's joining us. Big thanks to Richard James for continuing to put up with me for over a year, giving me the opportunity to do this show and produce it so well this evening. So, folks, think about any questions you want to ask throughout the show this evening. I'm going to go on for about an hour, and there's an opportunity for us to almost go into any direction, spiritualism. But the main point of discussion tonight is spiritualism, the religion and way of life. What does it mean to me? What does it mean to you? And for me, being spiritual as a spiritualist, what does that mean? So hopefully you've now all found the stream. You're either continuing to do your washing up or you're chilling out on a Friday night in November. Darker, colder and miserable than it has been over the spring and summer, but some glimmers of light in the horizon, both in terms of the time changing, the lights getting nighter after Christmas, and hopefully a state of return to some sort of new normality with both churches and centres open up and indeed our life's opening up. So if you are in need of any spiritual healing this evening, drop that name of you or anyone that needs that. We'll make sure we send some spiritual healing and some absent healing out to all of you. And for those of you watching this evening, I send you all some love, some light and some laughter. Looking forward to work with you in an uplifting way. So it'd be good to do a couple of hellos now, see who's joining us on the show, both on YouTube and Facebook. And while we're doing that, folks, if you haven't already found the social media channels, hiya Terry Wall, please head over to those. Spiritual Psychic TV across all of those channels, including TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and you can find me at Ash Robinson Medium. Lovely Terry Wall does a lot of brilliant work administration. Rhonda Robinson says hello to everybody. Hiya, Rhonda. Christine Marias, the lovely Christine Marias, good evening to you. Lovely Mary Dixie, my circle leader. We're going to do a special in the new year about spiritualist development and circles. I'm going to get Mary Dixie and Christine Woodham, that often joins the show from Spain. We're going to have a little bit of a chat about that. Lovely Kelly McKeaton, good evening to you and big love to you also, Kelly. Lovely Alison Barton, hiya. Does a lot of great admin work for us. Thank you, Alison. Amy Andrews, good evening. Hey, Amy. The lovely Kaylee, good evening to you. Joe Smith, I'm new. Welcome, Joe. Special welcome to you. So we're chatting spiritualist philosophy tonight. Nikki Weston, what a nice voice. Thank you, Nikki. I do appreciate that. Christine Naberto, good evening to you, my friend. Ray Robinson, that name sounds familiar. Hello, Dad. Hello, Mum. Hello, Mum's putting Baby Jack to sleep this evening. Yeah, here we go. Got Baby Jack to sleep. Good. Mission accomplished. You can watch your favourite son on YouTube. Now, I say favourite son. You've only got the one. Trish Woods, good evening. Christine Davis, hiya. Marlene Cummings, new to Ashley's show. Oh, hello, Marlene. Welcome to the show this evening. Look forward to your questions. Dawn, is that Dawn Ultram? Good evening to you. Charlotte Vatina Yates Smith. Hiya, Charlotte Vatina. What a beautiful name. Two double barrels. Jennifer Clark. Healing, please. Yeah, sending you some love, light, and healing, Jennifer. Lots of healers watching this show tonight. We'll make sure we collect all of that energy. Nicola McCafferty, history time, watching from Bonnie Dundee, even as opposed to Australia Dundee. Julie Caswell, good evening to you, Julie. I'm sure you've got some difficult, challenging questions. I like to take my spiritual daily advancement with Julie Caswell's questions. Always gets me thinking and challenging it. So, lovely old crowd. If I've not mentioned you specifically by name, that's not deliberate. Good evening to you all, and thanks for joining us. It's great to be back. For those that are familiar to Spiritual Psychic TV, you'll be very familiar with the fan page. And over on the fan page, I've put up a little poll to ask people about some of the subjects you would like us to discuss together over the next year. So do head over to the fan page afterwards and any of the VIP shows we've got going on. And, let me know about some of the things you want to talk about. I know there's a lot of interest in reincarnation, so we'll probably do a special on reincarnation in the new year. Maybe I'll get a panel of people on talking about their different concepts and how it fits into to spiritualism. But tonight then, spiritualism, the way of life. And the reason I wanted to talk a little bit about spiritualism as opposed to just me being spiritual as such, or what makes my spiritualism, is I saw a thread online recently where people said, is spiritualism really a religion? If it is, what is it that underpins it? And lots of people were talking about principles. And indeed, we dedicated an entire show to that, folks, didn't we? About the principles. We spoke about some of the larger organizations. We went through the spiritualist principles of Wimbledon Spiritualist Church and the principles of what is important to the church. But ultimately, we're sort of trying to get right into the subject. And I stayed quiet on it for a little. Because for me, spiritualism is my religion. It's something I'm very proud about. When I talk about being a medium, I'm very proud to say that I'm a spiritualist medium. And then people might say, well, what's the difference between a spiritualist medium or a spiritual medium, or indeed a spirit medium? So, see that a lot online, don't you? International spirit medium. What does that mean? What's the difference between that and a psychic medium, or just a medium, or the psychic Sallys and co's of this world? So that's what I want to sort of talk about today, the labels that people use, what you indeed yourself feel quite familiar with, and what it means to be for me. Because principally for me, as a spiritualist medium and as a medium accredited with United Spiritualist Fellowship, I believe that my job is first and foremost to provide evidence of life after life, evidence of a personality, evidence of a soul after they've gone through that change we call death. And that for me is sets me apart from other types of mediums that won't necessarily always have the ambition to give evidence of life after death. Some psychic mediums, for example, may focus on the fact they're tapped into an energy or a consciousness, but they're focusing perhaps on the person. And I've always believed that when I'm working more in a psychic way, what I'm working on is purely energy. For me, the difference between me working as a psychic medium and a spiritualist medium would be the absence of a communicator. So spiritualist medium, got a communicator, I'm going to give evidence of their personality, then I'm going to give a message. As a psychic medium, perhaps I'm working purely on colors or auras. Maybe I'm working with some cards. Maybe I'm working on the energy of the person, but absence of a communicator. And then everything in between, perhaps I'm working with my own guides. Perhaps I'm working with other people's guides when clients sort of come to me. So as a spiritualist medium, I'm quite happy with that concept. And actually, I've mentioned United Spiritualist Fellowship. I've just started my formal training to become an ordained minister with United Spiritualists. So I'm an accredited medium with them. I've just started my counselling with the lovely Reverend Leslie Moulton, who does a wonderful meditation show. And she's teaching me to be a spiritual counsellor as part of my pathway to become an ordained minister. So the difference then as a spiritual minister or a spiritualist minister, for me, again, it's about that belief, isn't it? So as a medium, I'm proving, I'm giving evidence of life after death. As a minister, I'm not necessarily working with a communicator. What is the point of that? Why do I want to be a minister of religion within spiritualism? Well, for me, that core belief is that belief in life after death. It's the opportunity to share my knowledge of life after death and to share the truths of spiritualism. Some of those truths will be well versed in various principles of major organizations or principles of the church. But as a minister, having that belief of life after death, that becomes a foundation. So bringing together my own personal pathway, that of a spiritualist medium, a trainee spiritualist minister, learning to be a spiritual counselor under the teachings of Reverend Leslie Moulton, what does that also mean? And if we take out the principles, what is it that underpins a religion? What is it that makes this a religion? Well, I suppose we have places of worship. You call these churches and centres, including pop-up and suitcase churches. But when we then get to sort of what may be considered a religious text or a religious book, you sort of get to the point of saying, okay, well, other religions may refer to one book. Within Christianity, often that's the Bible. They talk about that collection of stories and written work. Within Islam, you have the Quran and other religious texts within other religions. Of course, you get to religions, and I've got a friend of mine who was a Sikh, and when we were talking about taking an oath, maybe on a Bible, perhaps swearing on a Bible, doing something, he said that there was no one particular book for him as a practicing Sikh, but there were lots of important books, lots of sacred books and prayer books that would be important. But actually, he would have no problems swearing an oath on a Bible, for he respected that. So what is the main religious text of spiritualism? Well, I personally don't think there is one. If you go to my church at Wimbledon, you'll actually come across copies of religious books in almost every major religion in the world. There are Bibles there. And indeed, as a church in Wimbledon, we have a principle of accepting the leadership of Jesus Christ, but that's an individual principle to the church. Most people would recognize Jesus as a historical character. I have always seen him as a human being, as someone that came down to show us how to use and how to work with some of those spiritual gifts to show that we're all part of that divine energy, that divine creator God, therefore children of God, but not necessarily saw Jesus as anything other than a wonderful human being and leader. A leader because I would have chose to follow him, no doubt, if I'd been around. So be interesting to see from your own points of views what religious text within the concepts of spiritualism you consider to be that. There are many books that we've read from on this show, and indeed other people have read from and readings. There are great spiritual ambassadors. There are older souls, some may refer to as ascended masters. There are wonderful evidence of trance mediums and their guides who've come through, and there's lots of books and lectures have been written about those. But there is no real one single book that necessarily underpins spiritualism. Now, the different flavors of spiritualism, I think you do start to get together particular teachings above and beyond the principles. So one of the organizations we spoke about before is the Greater World. My dad was general manager at the Greater World, a Christian spiritualist organization, and it was indeed the teachings of Zodiac, which were a big part of what the Greater World sort of stood for. So you could say, as a Christian spiritualist associated with the Greater World, that Zodiac became your religious text, and you had these various sort of beliefs in life after death and truths of spiritualism. But then there are other flavors of Christian spiritualism. We had Reverend, I've forgotten his last name, Philip, that was on here a little while ago, that spoke about the new church of spiritualism, and Reverend Len de Swart, that used to be an editor at Psyche News. Philip Solomon, thank you, Mr. Producer, for reminding me. Again, different flavors, different teachings, different sort of leaders. I go for different books depending on my mood or my flavor. So as an individual, I think the point I'm making is that I don't have to have one particular book, guide or bound me, but all of these wonderful books of teachings of spiritual ambassadors and mediumship, which has come through sort of trance mediums and those guides, all of those things form part of that. So I then have to go back to that question of what is it that actually defines a religion. Now, the SNU, of which I'm not a member, is one of the biggest and most recognized boards of spiritualism in the UK, and it was great to see the SNU at the Cenotaph laying down a poppy on behalf of spiritualists. And although they were doing that on behalf of the SNU, for me, having someone who is a spiritualist up there doing that, it is a representation for all of us. Oh, thanks, Dad. And I think that if you think about the principles of the SNU and some of their teachings, again, within the flavors of spiritualism, perhaps it's not just necessarily about opening up and defining, but it's about excluding. Some of those principles of the SNU that we've spoke about before may suggest the way that churches are decorated. Perhaps there shouldn't be references to X, Y, and Z. Jesus or crosses within Christianity. Actually, there's a big influence on that. So, what's the point? I suppose I'm rambling on about this. What is the point? Well, again, for me, it's what is personal and private to you, and what is an important thing to you, and how that you're going to do that. So go back to it then. Spiritualism as a religion for me is that belief and knowledge of a life after that change we call death. As a medium, I'm going to prove that by giving evidence of someone's life after death. I'm going to share my knowledge of spiritualism through opportunities and platforms like this, through my spiritual address. I'm going to invite my guides to come very close to me, like they do in this show, to advise me, to guide me, to steer me. And I'm going to share the truths of what I believe are spiritualism. And those truths to me do go back again to the principles. We talk about, different things with slightly different language, but bearing in mind the time that many of these principles are written. We speak about angels. We speak about communion. We speak about taking personal responsibility and reckon that we have a free will. All of those things for me are like ingredients. And actually, where I am right now on the 19th of November in the year 2021, I have the advantage to worship, to have faith in almost anything I want to do. And it's a wonderful freedom to have in this UK to be able to do that, because like the ingredients in a cake, I can take the principles I like, I can take the teachings I like, I can keep adding them to my little bowl, and I can make my own sort of spiritualist cake. So spiritualism as a way of life, my way of life, takes those principles, certainly the principles of my own church at Wimbledon, but I share so many principles with other branches of spiritualism and indeed other major religions. So that was the last point I want to sort of finish on before bringing in some of your questions, is that in trying to define what spiritualism is as a religion, I went and looked at sort of other religions and what defines them. And I looked for things that were either compatible or not compatible. And for me, there's some really interesting things about religion, because almost without question, every major religion do talk about the concept of a life after this life. Lots of people refer to that place as heaven or paradise or a utopia. Some people talk about a constant reincarnation or the concept of a reincarnation, the opportunity to redo it. All of the major religions pretty much talk about supreme beings. Most focus on a supreme being or something greater than yourself. Others talk about many, many spiritual beings and supreme beings, gods and goddesses. And the other parts of defining sort of religion are looking for the similarities. So a belief in a life after death, a life after life, a belief in something greater than yourself, a supreme being or many supreme beings. And then this understanding of what you do in this life has an impact, and that you must take responsibility for it. For you do have free will, whether or not you choose to to listen to the call of something greater than yourself or something more supreme or divine. You have this free will, and the way that you live your life is your choice. And for every action you take, there is a cause and effect. And recognizing all of that as it comes together, you therefore think that almost all of the religions have these little breadcrumbs which draw them actually together. And I think that's why over the years I've come across people that might refer to themselves as an Islamic spiritualist or a Muslim spiritualist, a Hindu spiritualist, Sikh spiritualist, Christian spiritualists, spirits. And I think that the word spiritualist sometimes is a mouthful and sometimes hard for people to say, or something that people have not found comfortable in a spiritualist church or centre, and therefore they abbreviate it to spirit or spiritual. And spiritual has a far wider meaning, even though it's a shorter word from the word spiritualist. Spiritual, and this show, being spiritual, is a huge umbrella across almost all of the major religions. Again, there are spiritual angles and answers to that. So lots of lovely things. Oh, I've got one of my children coming in. Sorry, good evening. Like, boys, Daddy's on his show. Okay, I will deal with it afterwards. Okay, please go back to bed, and I will be out in a minute. Yeah, I will fix it in the morning, I promise. Good night. Okay, and Daddy's working. Well, over a year, folks. It's never happened. But there are there's proof of my boys. I'm glad they were wearing some clothes when they just came to the door now. Solo parenting tonight. They should have been asleep a long time ago, but they've been at Winter Ball Disco, so they're full of sugar and loud music, and they're still having a great time. So apologies for that. Alice has let them in. Yeah, they've got some brilliantly deep spiritual thoughts, sometimes only in a few words, but that's all you need to do. So yeah, by way of summing up then, folks, for me, I am very proud to call myself a spiritualist medium, spiritualist minister or trainee minister, and it's private, isn't it? It's personal, and yes, it's private, but I'm sharing with you. But I mean, it's private in terms of the respect we have for one another. For our faith is very private to ourselves. Our religion is very private to ourselves. In the same way, I might wear a shirt that shows my favourite rugby team, me waving a flag to say that I'm proud of my spiritualism, my spirituality. Again, that's entirely up to me and how much I share, but how much we tolerate from each other. And the word tolerate is sometimes difficult for people to even understand, but I'd love to go beyond tolerate and say, we're not just going to tolerate each other. We're going to respect the difference of opinion and the variety that is the spice of life. And actually, from a religious point of view and a religion point of view, perhaps like those breadcrumbs that draw it all together, they are all ultimately linked. And there are things for us to find in all of those. And hopefully some of you do find some comfort within religion, or like my cake and my bowl of ingredients. Take what is important to you. Take what labels are important to you. And if you don't like labels, don't use them. For you are you. You are unique in every way. You have the power and gift of free will to take that responsibility. So thanks a lot, folks. That was kind of what I wanted to plant as a seed. I can go on more, but I'd really be keen now to get some of your thoughts and feelings. Like Sharon was saying, she's not religious, but appreciate my family and friends, which is lovely, Sharon, isn't it? And actually, you've heard my belief in reincarnation, and I think that ultimately it's all about the now, the importance of living this life in pursuit of happiness. So Julie Caswell says, what I love about being a spiritualist is that we don't have a book to tell us what to think. That's quite nice, Julie, isn't it? We were talking about the books. Yeah, we interpret this and how to think and how to interpret ourselves. We don't have one sole text. But yeah, absolutely. For me, it's still a religion. It's a way that we live our lives. It's the opportunity to give service and to show unconditional love and respect for each other. Yeah, very well put, Julie. Take some water. So do get your questions in, folks. Think about anything you'd like to say, anything I've said that you want to challenge, or anything that you want to come in. Mum and Dad saying that you're very proud to be spiritualist. Yeah, you see the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree, does it? Yeah, I've been, yeah, definitely. Okay. So Richard's just given us a definition of a spiritualist. Is that something you've come up with yourself, Richard, or something you read? So spiritualism is the religion, and a spiritualist is someone that believes. Spirit and energy survive after body death. Yeah, nice, nice definition. And I've used my own language to describe some of that. But yeah, it's spot on. and nothing there to really disagree with. And perhaps one day we'll all come together under a single umbrella. But actually, the important thing is that we respect each other, and that we share that knowledge and faith in that life after death. Dawn says that she's a spiritual being having a human experience. Yeah, what a lovely way to put it, Dawn. And again, we've spoke about all sorts of experiences of incarnation, but yeah, it's all about the experiences we're having right now in this human being 3D world. Pamela Rogers says, very proud to be a spiritualist also. Thank you for sharing that, Pamela. I was thinking about you earlier on, Pamela. For those looking forward to getting together in spring next year, we have our Life After Death promotions and Spiritual Psychic TV spiritual retreat down in Bournemouth in March. And I've been sending out some of the joining instructions, getting some of the admin for that. So, yeah, you've been on my mind, Pamela. Stay Shaw says, Christian spiritualists follows Jesus' teaching, don't they? I mean, that's one way of putting it, Stace. Yeah, and certainly, if you think about Christianity, you've got Christianity with a spiritualist flavour to it. I've often spoke about my two boys that both go to a Catholic primary school, and they've been baptised both Catholic and Spiritualist. And for me, there's very little that is incompatible. If you take spiritualism as a religion and overlay it to Catholicism, there's very little that Catholicism can say, well, that's not compatible with what we're teaching. You get down to the detail, and there's a handful of things. But yeah, we did an entire show, didn't we? We spoke about Jesus as the medium and the healer. So I accept the leadership of Jesus Christ, but I don't necessarily call myself a Christian spiritualist anymore, because for me, Christianity and all of the teachings within the Bible were harder to believe. But yeah, that was a nice way of putting it. Again, private to each person. Now, Terry says she's always believed in life after physical death, but never knew what spiritualism or spiritualist was until a few years ago. So I've been a spiritualist all of my life, well, from 7 years old. Yeah, great. And it just goes to show, isn't it? Labels are not that important. It's about what we think and feel and believe. It's about the way we live our lives, the way we treat ourselves and respect and invest in ourselves, the way we treat others, the way we love. We did an entire show, didn't we, to love, the differences and the flavors of love, but proper, full, unconditional love, one of the most powerful things in the universe. And, many spiritualists will demonstrate that opportunity to love unconditionally through service and through the things they do, which they dedicate, unconditionally with love. And you could say that spiritualism, for me, is all around that. It's understanding of love. Amy says, question about the kids. You think I remember you saying in another show that your wife is another religion. Do you aid your kids in certain faith or in both, so you choose? There we go, Amy. That was a great segue into what we were just talking about. Yes, so my wife has got Irish heritage, and she was baptized Catholic, and I did get married in a Catholic church 16 years ago. My dad did pretty much a spiritualist blessing at the reception afterwards. And I would have loved to have got married in my own church in Wimbledon. But I said to my dad, for me, where I get married is less important than the intention sort of behind it. So I was quite comfortable with that. Some of the things within Catholicism, I wouldn't always be happy to fully buy into. Do I believe that the Holy Communion is truly the blood of Jesus and body of Christ? No, I don't. I think it's red wine and it's bread in memory of the Last Supper. And for me, it's that act of remembrance. But deep down, when you talk to most practicing Catholics in 2021, that's what they believe. I've joked with my nan-in-law that do you really think that Catholicism is cannibalism? Are you going to eat the body of Christ on a Sunday morning? And of course, many of them don't believe that, but it's the way it's been interpreted over the years. So yes, we've decided to give our children the opportunity to make sort of their mind up as much as they can when they're older, but to a certain extent we've made some decisions for them by getting them baptized and named within spiritualist churches. And going to a Catholic primary school, a lot of their religious education is dedicated to that spread of Catholicism. And during lockdown, the opportunity to homeschool my two boys, I took on the religious education. And I took the Catholic syllabus and I delivered it almost to the letter. But I did ask lots of questions with my boys. to see what they understood of it, particularly when we spoke about things like Holy Communion and what it meant. So, although they are, if you like, being brought up with both, we're trying to ask them lots of questions, give them the opportunity to ask questions. When it came to the actual census, in my house of four, I said I was a spiritualist. My wife said she was Catholic. Now, she's also accredited with United Spiritualist Federation as a spiritual healer, but she sees herself as a Catholic, which is absolutely her right to do. So when it came to our boys, one of them was named as a Catholic spiritualist and the other as a spiritualist Catholic. So I'd be interested to see how many other abbreviations of that there were in the census. But yeah, we're trying to give them the benefit of both. Now, Ethan, my oldest son, who is going to be 7 in March, in year 2, actually really enjoys his RE, and it's fair to say that at times he struggles to keep up with his reading, sort of writing responsibilities along his peer groups, but he loves leading conversations on spiritual matters, and within RE he's always sort of first to ask questions and get involved in things, and he has some really deep questions for me because he'll learn things at school as part of the sort of Catholic syllabus, but he'll also know what I do. He knows that tonight I'm talking to friends in heaven who are giving me their advice, and I'm trying to share that with friends online. He knows that when he comes to the church and he's seen me work, that he knows that I'm talking to people in heaven and I'm giving messages from heaven. So he's starting to blend that all together. So yeah, hopefully that answers that question. I missed a couple of things that flashed up a minute ago, but Christian Maria says she was married in a spiritualist church. It's lovely, Christian. And there was a couple of other things that came up a minute ago, Richard, that I sadly missed. So I'm a terrible multitasker. Oh, it's my dad says, if spiritualists can conduct weddings in our churches, it follows that a religion is tolerated by HM government. Yeah, I mean, it's recognised, isn't it? Spiritualism is recognised. Although what annoys me in almost any time I have to give any sort of diversity, equality information, that spiritualism never appears as one of those options. I always select other. And go for something else. I hope that one day people feel sort of confident enough about adding in that other, are able to talk about those different blends. Your Catholic spiritualists, your spiritualist Catholics, or your spiritualist or your spiritual people. I think that's really important. Nice to be recognised as a religion in law, but when you look at the definition of that, it's quite light. I think I could come up with a basic concept of what it means to have my religion, create the religion of Ash today, and could probably get it recognised as such. But again, what beautiful opportunity that gives us. Sorry, I've got the front door going now as well. It's all testing me, testing me because I'm celebrating. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to pause for some adverts because I think my wife has actually got home and she can't find her keys. And she's outside trying to get in. So adverts time, folks. And
Spiritual Psychics TV. Online. Spiritual Psychics TV isn't just an online broadcasting service, we also offer many features via our website. SPTV offers a unique directory that uses geolocation to find your nearest reader or venue, just by using your postcode. The Academy section allows anyone to upload and create their own spiritual courses within minutes. For those who like to read, then our online magazine area will offer just that. The SPTV shop enables anyone to start their online shop, be it to sell used or new items. You can also find our schedule and information about our shows.
Spiritual Psychics TV, bringing spiritual people together.
You're watching Being Spiritual with Ashley Robinson. The show will continue after these short announcements. Tomorrow night from 8 p.m, we have our weekly show, Mediumship Demonstration. This show offers the opportunity for mediums to demonstrate their mediumship abilities by offering free readings to our viewers. On Sunday from 11 a.m, we team up with Wimbledon Spiritualist Church for the Divine Service. The Divine Service consists of healing, a reading, an address, and a demonstration of mediumship. Sunday evening we have our weekly VIP evening. Details can be found in the VIP lounge. For more information on our broadcasts, schedule, and information about the presenters, please visit our website. That's it for all the announcements. I'll pass you back to Ashley. Enjoy the rest of the show.
And I was just joking with our producer that all the outtakes I could have had throughout the year all happening in one night tonight. So beautiful of benefit of live engagement, live TV as such. So yeah, really keen to get your questions. Julie was just talking about a personal trouble she'd have with another religion, and she doesn't necessarily believe in a God who judges. And she doesn't believe in hell. She believes that when she passes, it goes to like we have self-responsibility. I think that in itself, is an interesting sort of concept, because my very first show just over a year ago was what is God? And ultimately, I came to the conclusion that God is energy. God is everything, because we are all energy, and therefore is that continuous existence, that divine presence. It's the sum particles of all of the energy together. Obviously, the show went on in a bit more detail, so do go and find that on playback if you've not seen it. But for me, God is energy as opposed to a person. We probably become the biggest judge ourselves in our life, immediate life, after that change we go through called death. I think there's an interesting thing there about hell, because actually, just go back to the concept of God again, because we spoke about supreme beings and we spoke about religions that talk up about people. And, whenever I open in prayer, I like to talk about the Mother, Father, God, recognizing the two genders, which makes sense to me. But of course, as time goes on, we're talking about sort of gender fluid. We're talking about non-binary. Will the male and female gender itself be as important? Will we just be talking about without a gender? Because God is a spiritual being. It's the all of the being. It's the divine presence. And if you think about all the other so-called gods, and I don't mean that with any disrespect when I say so-called gods, people refer to them as gods. There are different saints within Catholicism where people would pray to, one saint to get you across the sea, another saint to help you find something. For me, all of these figures have similar meaning when people in spiritualism refer to as ascended masters. And what's an ascended master? Well, ascended, apart from producer Richard James, ascended for me, interprets as, gone to heaven, ascended up, energy, higher frequency energy, up, right? Okay, ascended, masters or mistresses. And masters, well, that's a term of respect, isn't it, for some sort of leader, someone we would choose to follow. So actually, anyone that has a life after life that continues to teach and inspire and invest in us, you could argue is an ascended master. Perhaps people that have lived several lives continue to grow like a sponge with all that energy. Okay, Amy Andrews says, I feel like when I go to mediums and they give me undeniable proof that life carries on after death, it also provides me with proof of a higher being, etc. And the question just carry on rolling. Lovely. And Amy, it's a really good point about why do people keep coming to churches or come to mediums? And there was a scientist that Derek Acora used to quote, who said, for the non-believer, no proof is possible. And for the believer, no proof is necessary. But actually, once you've received evidence of life after death yourself, and you therefore believe there is a life after this change that our bodies go through called death, then why do you keep coming back? What's the importance of it? When people come and sit in churches every Sunday, we're lovely to have a wonderful dedicated congregation at our church on Sundays, online and in person. And what's in it for them? And lots of people talk about watching other people get those messages is continued evidence and continued belief, but it's uplifting to see people get messages from those loved ones. And the way you put that there, Amy, I think is quite nice, because it's provides proof of something bigger or greater than ourselves. It gives you, for me, gives me something to look forward to. Mediums themselves can be quite difficult to read for sometimes. We're often guilty of breaking the rules. We tell our clients, never feed a medium. You put a medium in the congregation, and they know that you've got a link and they're so excited by it. They're wanting to give you that confirmation. They start feeding information. I've been guilty of that many times. And for me, it just goes back to that point of, no proof is necessary of life after death. I want the message. I know exactly what you're talking about. I know you've got on. Perhaps I'm even picking up on it too. And then it goes in for what's in it for us as spiritualists. What else is there above and beyond the messages? And so many people only come to church to receive a message for themselves. I love our divine service where we have a little bit of an address, so that every Sunday, which you can watch live on Sunday mornings at 11 o'clock, you're getting an address from the medium. You're getting perhaps a reading from one of our ambassadors or our ascended masters, one of our trance mediums giving talk about one of their guides. And it starts to plant those seeds about the way we could enjoy this experience, the way we could live our life. As a medium, I make it a personal mission to try and help people live their best possible lives by helping them be at their best as much as the time as they can be. And that in itself is quite difficult, because if you think about your best and your personal best, if you were at your personal best all of the time, would that become the normality? And therefore, it's not your best, it's what you are normal day to day. So for me, I like to say being at your best as much as the time as you can be, because it's about all of the conditions in the environment and the culture. But actually, I now sort of see being my best as me at my best on my best day. Me hitting the mark, the X, the target when I'm at my best. Everything else in between is perhaps me spurting and trying to aim for that perfection, but making sure the conditions are right so I can be at my best more of the time. Now, Terry says, I still question everything, even though I know there is life after physical death. And Terry, I think questions are really important. I like to take a daily advancement. I try and learn as much as I can. These shows, my guides continue to teach and inspire me. And I think it's important that we question things. And as a medium, it's important that I'm able to question via my guides, and I'm able to not settle for what's working, but continue to dive for best evidence, better evidence, and give more and more detail. Now, Nicola Humphrey says, I think it's lovely when you hear other people's messages, and sometimes helps when you're having doubts or problems. Yeah, that's true. And I love watching our demonstrations of mediumship, both at the church and on this show. And you'll always get a medium demonstrating their gift of mediumship on a Saturday night at 8 o'clock. And sometimes you've got a cast of several thousand people. And within that 1,000 people, you'll have half a dozen all actually accepting the message. Now, you could say that on those numbers, because it's a message of love and light and uplifting, that it makes sense. But I also think that from an energy point of view, you can take comfort from that. Very rare have I ever seen or heard of evidence of life after death coming in with a message that is really negative or particularly poor. I mean, I've seen glimpses of people's personalities. If they were miserable so-and-sos, you get a glimpse of that. But actually, from where they are, from that place that I like to call heaven, the spirit world, actually they're looking to share some of that with us, to let us know that they are all right, or if they are missing it and what they're missing. So some food for thought there. Wendy says, it's comforting to know that there's so much more than what we see in this world. I like that, Wendy, and I like the word comforting. For me, on a bad day, and, like many of us, I've sometimes struggled to overcome bouts of sort of sadness and even depression. And I do get comfort out of my religion. I get comfort out of knowing that this experience I'm going through, be that positive, happy, sad, anything in between, is important for my foundations. And therefore, it's great comfort to know there's something greater than myself and something greater going on. Now, Kelly Jo Rayner says she new here. Is your Spiritualist church online? Live in a small town in Kansas, nothing is available. Well, hiya, Kelly, and welcome to this community. Yes, every Sunday morning on Spiritual Psychic TV, Greenwich Mean Time at 11 a.m., we broadcast the Divine Service live from Wimbledon Spiritualist Church. And you can find that on playback, and you can watch it across YouTube and Spiritual Psychic TV. Now, the Divine Service from Wimbledon has that collection, as I said, of readings and an address by a medium, and the medium works both within the congregation and online. But also get demonstrations of mediumship on this channel a couple of times a week, and everything in between. There's almost something every night, from small groups and people chatting about stuff to fledglings giving evidence of mediumship. There are people writing on the Spiritual Psychic TV online pages and the newspaper and magazine. There are VIP nights and demonstrations over sort of Zoom. So all sorts of stuff. Get stuck in, have a look back on playback. There's some dedicated shows with people doing slightly different things. And yeah, all in one place. So lovely to have people from Kansas tonight. Sally Ann Signs says, I worked on end-of-life care and saw many spirits collect their loved ones to guide them. I use colours. Well, Sally Ann, thank you for sharing. Two things that I wanted to plan. One is the use of colour, and the other thing is about spirits collecting their loved ones. That's one of the things that has given me great comfort growing up as a child and then working as a medium, is the fact that almost never have we had evidence of people dying on their own, even if they were physically alone and not with another human being. That the spirit world, even in sad and tragic circumstances that weren't necessarily part of destiny, the spirit world are there to greet us, to guide us, to help us. Indeed, our loved ones come to find us. And perhaps when you're talking about end of life care and they're very aware of what's going on, they're helping with that transition. And I've been in hospitals with friends and family that have passed over. And as a medium, I've been attuned to some of that energy. And it's one of the most incredible things. So well done for doing the end of life care. That in itself is brilliant service and wonderful for you to share your evidence of spirits. The other thing I wanted to finish then is about colours. And we spoke about psychic. And for me, when I work with colours, I'm using more of my sort of psychic abilities. But also for me, we telegraph, we portray some of our personality, some of our traits, some of our gifts in colours. And I was always fascinated with the use of colour. My mum and my circle leader, Jill Hay, used to use them quite a lot. I used to love when Jill Hay could work in a theatre and she could segue between spiritualist mediumship and evidence of life after death to suddenly say, who wants a colour reading? Get free colours and give someone a psychic message based on colours. And how my mum could see people like the red red glow and the auras and the colours around them. She's done lots of workshops where she's trained people to see exactly that, the auras and the colours. And almost all of those colours mean something and mean something different to each of us. Dawn Altram said, I was in circle where we were practicing. I'm new to this and gave what I could see. The message was for a young lady who had lost her mum to spirits. I could see a small, crude cross. And she confirmed that she had placed the cross in her mum's coffin. That just blew me away. Dawn, thank you for sharing that. And yeah, what beautiful evidence. And I think it's actually a lovely thing of being a medium is that you can continue to be blown away yourself. You know, I'm 39 this year. I've been working on platform as a medium since I was about 18. And for me, no message is the same. I mean, if you watch me in Spiritual Psychic TV, you might say they are. But the evidence changes, is different. I mean, the uplifting message is often the same. You know, heaven, great place. I'm okay. You know, look after each other, do the right thing. That sort of stuff can be quite generic. But the specific evidence can be really random, and it just shows, doesn't it, that our friends and family are around us. You know, for you, you're sitting in circle and you're learning. Great evidence for you that you're not making this all up. And I know it's so hard not to believe that in the early days, isn't it? Well, what if it's just the voices in my head talking to me? Well, what are the voices in your head? And if you don't see anything, but you see a color and the color's black and that's nothing, well, what does black mean? And it's all about those stepping stones and learning. But I love that. And when mediums give different bits of evidence, I love watching that. I think it's entertaining to see someone using their own talent to bring forward that evidence. That in itself is you know, really important. Okay, Rich. Okay, Rich is just going to show me something, folks, and I was just going to talk a little bit about it. Okay, so on Yahoo News, I think this is the Australian flavour in particular. There's a headline that Richard was just sharing with me. TikTok nurse reveals patient's last words before they die. So do Google this, folks, and have a look at it. But it talks about a palliative care nurse in the USA, and they went viral on TikTok after the heartwarming things that they had heard people say to loved ones before they die. So this was based in California. It was Julie McFadden, and it was about videos that they were regularly posting about working in end of life care, hoping to educate and normalize death and dying through her videos. And her videos, which have now amassed millions of views, folks, have gone viral. But there's one thing that keep people coming back, and the most common thing that people say before they pass away. There is something most people say before the day, she revealed. It's usually, I love you, or they call out to their mum or dad. So that sounds like something definitely worth checking out. If you're not on TikTok, folks, do get yourself over on TikTok. Spiritual Psychic TV on there now. I've even been coerced to get on there. I just now need a teenager to help me work out exactly what I'm doing on there. It's sad because I used to be that family teenager that would help everyone with these things, but world and technology can quickly come out in front. So Dawn, thank you for sharing that. And Richard, what a lovely story there of that nurse in California. Thank you. And Sally Ann was just saying that she found it comforting the spirits allowed to see them. Yeah, it's a gift in many ways itself, isn't it? And I think we're blessed to see bits and pieces. Very true, Sally Ann. Any other questions, folks, that you would like me to answer or ponder? Any thoughts that you would like to share, or anything you would like to add, perhaps? When we're coming towards the end of the show, anyway, it's amazing. We've already been going for about an hour. Rhonda Robertson was saying the last thing my mum said to me was "I love you," and how powerful that is. We as mediums get that so often that not only is it the last thing they said in their experience as a human being, it's one of the first things they want to say as a spiritual being when they've recreated some sort of body without perfections, is to come back and share that. Equally, for people who weren't great in showing their emotions while they're alive, they have the opportunity to do that, sharing in a slightly different way. So Siobhan Rook said her mum sat up straight in bed as if someone was coming for her. She was so calm, and she died the following day. And Siobhan, thank you for sharing that personal story. And I imagine that perhaps there were people coming for her. One of my nans, Nanny June, had several quite bad strokes, and a bit of dementia was starting to creep in. And she definitely wasn't at her best anymore in the last sort of couple of chapters of her life, and she had to go into an assisted sort of living space in her home. It was very difficult for my granddad when he was alive, and he often spoke about almost losing her twice with the dementia. And some of the things that the conversations that my nan used to have, I'm convinced weren't just the disease of the things that were affecting her brain, but actually were communications with spirit, because her mind's eye was continuing to open up in the last chapter of her life. And when she spoke, having a conversation with her dad that morning, you had to question, was that a memory of her dad? Or when she added in the context of him coming into the care home and saying something, I used to believe it was, her dad that had that conversation. I think other types of what we described as mental health illnesses and multiple personalities and voices, there may be elements there. Not always, and there are, absolute distinguishings, but I think spirits are around us all of the time. Joe Smith says, spirits, when you see them, are they in their clothes like they were on Earth? Good question, Joe. I've joked a couple of times that it all depends on how they died, because if they died changing the sheets on their bed, they appear as a traditional ghost with their hands stuck in the corners with a big white glow, so they end up cutting holes in their eyes. But of course, that's just a bit of fun. Spirits, in most occasions, will influence someone's mind's eye. Right in the middle, the place you store your shopping list, and you're not actually using your physical gift of sight. Not always. I've caught glimpses of spirits, and I've seen things with my own eyes, and in the right conditions, it's absolutely incredible to get that type of physical phenomenon. Because the spirit are able to influence our minds, they can influence almost anything, and it all depends on the levels you're working with as a medium or indeed as a member of the family. Because to take you, Joe, as an example, you would recognize and know your loved ones in the spirit world, so they could very quickly in your mind's eye say it's me, and they could use a voice or a sound or a smell or a picture of them from an actual memory, so you knew it was them. If I was giving you a reading and I didn't know you, and I didn't have the pleasure of knowing, say, your second cousin twice removed, and they were the one that's communicating, then they won't immediately find it easy to paint a picture of themselves in their head. And again, different mediums work in different ways, but for me it's a little bit like Guess Who. What happens within my mind's eye is, if they're a man, they would knock down all the women. If they wore glasses, they'll wore down the ones without glasses. If they had a beard, they'd only keep the ones with beards. And eventually, they start to work through the different relationships that I know in my immediate life to make it easy. If I've got someone's granddad and it was their mum's dad, then perhaps they'll show me a picture of my mum's dad, first of all, so that I know that it's that Lincoln granddad. And I use other symbols with my guide team so they can very quickly come. But then as the energy and the consciousness blend, they start to influence me even more. I pick up more about their personalities and their traits. And at other times, they're able to describe themselves in great detail, or they're able to show themselves. And for me, when I start to have I call it the reveal. As the link builds up and they start to reveal themselves to me, it's a little bit like a police sketch artist in my mind, drawing it out. And I sort of starts with the eyes and the eyebrows, and it builds and builds and builds until I see their face and their hair. The other really interesting thing is that they can present themselves in absolutely any way, shape or form, a age or a time that they particularly enjoyed, because when they are presenting themselves to me, they have no need for a physical body. And in fact, in heaven, they are recreating a spiritual body for comfort, because they quite liked it. And again, if they're not physically showing with my eyes, they're influencing me, then they can show me in any clothes or any outfits or any sort of bit of fun. But I would say that in the vast majority of cases, let's say 70% of the cases, people tend to recreate a time that they were happy in that shell we call the body, and that's what they start to influence. And they'll sometimes say to me, I'm a little bit younger now, or I've got more hair or less hair, or I really liked that beard, and all of that stuff starts to sort of come forward. So thanks for that question. So I'm afraid I missed a couple of those cues you flashed up on the screen. But Julie Simpson here, Ashley, there is a lady with a fur coat and hat with you. Hopefully not the lady I just let in downstairs. I think you're talking about spirit. Thank you, Julie, for telling me that. I imagine this time of the year, fur hat is very warming. But thank you for passing that on. Dawn said her mum had dementia. She'd come through to a medium for me. I knew it was her because she told me not to worry. She's fine, said in a West Mids accent. My mum is still on the earth plane. Okay. So your mum has dementia. She's alive, but she has come through a medium to let you know. Okay, so what you're talking about there, Dawn, is almost like that concept of an out-of-body experience, or where the being, the human being who is alive, for want of a better words. And I always say the difference for me between a human being and a corpse is the presence of that personality. But I think what you're saying is that your mum has influenced you via a medium, that they're okay. Almost like an umbilical cord, isn't it, to the spirit world? And we've had evidence of that before, but that's quite incredible that you've had that, and very kind of you to share that with us, Dom. I think there was one other thing I missed, Richard. I may not have wrong. Me flashcards and cues to say your questions and stuff have come in, and actually, thinking about it is very similar to how I work as a medium. I'm using mine, trying to keep up. I think sometimes it means I've been talking for too long. Julie Caswell says, my dad told me the day before he passed that he, mum, and brother were there, and he was going to die. His last words were to as if my mum would be okay and that he was going to heaven. Again, Julie, thank you for sharing that personal experience, and it shows great courage to someone sort of end of book, end of chapter for them when they're able to get to that place. Other times, I think that people don't want it to happen, or they don't want to go. Christian Maria says, my last words were, who is God? Okay. Yeah, deep. Oh, your last words will be, "Who is God?" Um, you just reminded me of that. Was it Morecambe and Mindy's show? Robbie Williams, and yeah, he said, when he dies, he was going to say something like, "There's one thing I've always wanted to tell you," and I think that, again, you get those glimpses of people's humour and personality. Sadly, after, or maybe it's healthy, but sadly, I forget almost every single thing I've said in a sort of message. But the beauty of doing stuff broadcast on SPTV is you can go back and you can actually review the stuff that you've said, and you get them more of a glimpse of the message. And I've laughed sometimes at me saying things because I'm not really aware of what you're saying. It sometimes as a medium, you're giving the message as the communicator's given you. And there was something I did a couple of months ago on SPTV, and the guy had come through and he had said something like, "See, I told you I was sick," and he was sort of joking around the fact. And they said, "Oh, he was such a wind-up merchant," and he did. He was going on about not being well, and then he suddenly dropped dead. And it was one of the first things he said, to come through and let him know it was him, and it was funny. Richard says the last thing he'll say is, "I told you you'd never win that blasted lot." Yeah, and I've known people to come in with passwords. In this life, they say, "Oh, the password's going to be X, Y, and Z, and I'm going to say it, or get it to you across a medium." Other times, things are really important. I'm tone deaf, and if you ever want to play a game, you can say, "Guess that tune," when I try and sing in my best voice what the song is. But I've had communicators come through and try and get me to sing because the song was important to them. Right, Amy says, "I always feel a presence around me, but I can see or sense anything, if that makes sense. I wish I had that gift." Yes, Amy. And yeah, I do believe that we all have a gift. Because mediumship is a spiritual gift that we can all use, and spirit will work with us. But like anything, like driving, Amy, it takes practice, it takes discipline. You need a good trainer or a good instructor to take you through the basics. And of course, every car is different. You have to relearn the car, and obviously every communicator works in a slightly different way. So if you're ever interested, Amy, maybe head over to the Psychic TV online directory, find your local spiritualist church or centre and see if they're running any open circles. There's also some good stuff online you can check out that can help you continue to develop that gift. But yeah, we all have the opportunity to do it, and great that you're already sensing things. That's amazing. Thank you, Amy. Okay, rolling up towards the end of the night, but let's see if I can get your last couple of questions in. Okay, so I think lots of you are all thinking now about last words and what you would say, which is great. But do remember the important thing is to not save anything up, folks. To not leave anything unsaid that should be said. Wimbledon is my local. Well, great, Amy. We look forward to seeing you at Wimbledon. I don't think we have any space in any open circles at the moment, but Mary Dixie and Leslie are both running circles, and they do regularly. Phil Shaw and I have both been talking about doing something for new beginners in the new year. Some opportunities, by perhaps a sort of wave workshop. And there is, of course, the up and coming Academy on Spiritual Psychic TV, which will give people online opportunities and experiences. So look forward to seeing you one day soon, Amy. And lots of opportunities to practice and get involved. And of course, the return of the open platform. Now, we do have an open platform on Spiritual Psychic TV. I think, is it Sunday nights, Richard? Yeah, Sunday nights. So there's very good safe space with a sympathetic audience there as well, Amy. So when you're ready, you've also got online open platforms to have a go on. But it's about finding people that you can work with and you can trust with. And then you can just open your mouth and keep talking about what you're hearing, seeing, smelling, feeling, and just build it up from that. And that's this wonderful thing with this religion, with this ability. There's so many spiritual gifts that we can work with. It's all about our time that we dedicate to investing into ourselves. So about learning and developing, training. And some of us are more naturally gifted in things like art, for example. And if you keep practicing, you can get better at drawing. But some people are just naturally good at drawing. So keep it going. Amy says, "I'd love to try. I'd have to get rid of the kids." Yeah, I have that challenge. As you see, they appear naked or half naked in the middle of broadcasts on YouTube as well. So parenting is a team sport, isn't it? I'm sharing my parents, my principal child caregivers, with my sister tonight, and I think that it's all about getting the balance, because when it's right, and the universe will find a way to make that time. But we'll chat again, Amy. All right, Julie and a couple of others. Last few words then. So the lady looks like the lady on the film Home Alone, Bird Lady. If that doesn't mean anything to you, it's New York. Well, lovely, Julie. I think you're still giving me this lady in the fur coat. Thank you. I'll have a chat with those upstairs and see who that was. But I mean, great film, that Home Alone. And I've got exactly that vision now of the bird lady. But you know, I take them with love. I know that there's no one dark that can get anywhere near our house and into my life anyway. So thank you very much, Julie, for passing that on. Shavonna Rook says, I joined some of the ministry training via SPTZ and everyone is so nice. Lovely, Shavonna Rook. Thank you very much for that feedback. And there is a great team here. There's a great team of people. Everyone, for want of a better word, what did I describe it as the other day? Like a bunch of misfits, because we're not necessarily the same. Everyone across all these all this channel is slightly different. We all bring our own gifts and our own talent to it, but we work in love and light, well led by the producer Richard James. And what you get is consistently dedicated people. I think that's fair to show. Anything you're going to see on SPTV has been well vetted and regulated, and you know you've got some legit people that are going to come forward and give you their best evidence. And that's what makes this channel so special, both as someone that has a show to come on here, or as an observer when I watch things, is that this is one of the only channels like this in the world. Lots of people will have a go at replicating what Richard and the team here do, but I think we've got something special. And one of the big parts of that is you. It's the community. And we have a lovely growing community here. I mean, over 1.6 million individual viewers now, but there is this sort of core nucleus of dedicated viewers that make this community, that give their time so voluntary to booking mediums and providing content for you in the newsletter, working with Richard, and for you giving up your time, tuning in, watching us live, watching the stuff on playback. So I think it's a great opportunity for me, as I finish, to thank Richard James, to thank you, Siobhan, and everyone at home. Thank you so much for coming and watching this show on playback, watching it live. Thanks for giving us the likes and the love. If you're on Facebook now, you can give us some hearts so we know that you've loved being part of this. And if you've got any great feedback to pass on, please do. Please perhaps consider giving us a review on Spiritual Psychic TV, the Facebook page, or as part of the directory. Mary Dixie says she likes that. Misfits, or maybe Misfits United. There we go. That's the shirts we could have. Spiritualist Misfits United. With the SPTV logo on, Richard. Something for the new year, or Christmas stocking fillers. Something to think about. Alison likes that too, because you know what, we embrace our difference. What makes us different, what makes us unique, like a fingerprint, is what makes us special. And this is a safe place to come in. Lovely Livy says, thank you so much, Ashley and Knight, and as always, thank you to Richard and the SPTV zone. Love and light to all. Well, we're going to finish on those words then, Livy. Love and light to all. And we did say that as a result of the energy we've built up tonight, we'll just send that back out to the universe. So if you are a practicing healer, you know exactly what to do. If you don't, it's all about the power of intent. So recognize that we have worked in love and in the light this evening. And we ask for someone greater than ourselves to use that energy where it is needed most, to send that love, light and laughter out to the remote corners and parts of the world, to the people that need it most. If people are abroad, may they have a safe return to their native land, should they so desire. May they be relieved of any sufferings as quickly as they can. We wish them well. I wish you all well. Good night. God bless.